interesting that you would say this because I think in the last of the conversation before that, we were talking about writing, and I remembered my first job where you had to go and sit, and you were sitting with new clients. Your knowledge came from fiction novels and the James Hadley Chase and whatever, and you were sitting with people who were running businesses worth crores, but they were not as educated, but they knew their
Right.
business. And we were talking about this, and at that point, you had to make them uh, respect your art. And it was quite a journey. And at that time, it required a bit of bluster saying, oh, I can manage this, even when you
Yeah.
had no clue what you were going to manage to start with.
True. True.
And
Yeah.
so it is very interesting that you say this, but two or three very interesting values came to me along with the question. So I'll, because most of the time when my guests answer these, I look for these, what are the things that make this stick? Like,
Mm.
how is one really making friends with one's vulnerability? So one
Mm.
interesting thing, at least two or three interesting things that came up was that you used the word integrity earlier, but here it is even more so. So if
Yeah.
you are in the beginning trying to pitch for yourself, it is not really, at least one thing that I used to think, you can correct me if you also thought similarly, that while there is bluster involved in selling it,
Mm.
there is no fake approach to your own work. Once
Oh
you
no, no, of
sold
course
it,
not. Yeah.
you come back, you know you are going to. Today I was teaching my daughter the phrase midnight oil, burning the midnight oil. I think literally that is what you put in. Like you will
Sure.
go to any length to fulfill the promise you've made. If there is a
Absolutely.
problem, if there is a problem there, then there is no need talking about anything because there is no integrity towards your own work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
The
which is
second
why I said,
beautiful, sorry,
sorry, just coming back to that point a little bit, which is why the bluster I said was a good thing probably,
yeah,
because if that weren't there, then I would be creating something that was purely on someone else's vision. I would have had probably very, very little percentage of my own inputs in it. And we might not have been happy with that music later. Then what's the point of doing it anyway? Because at the end of the day, you're not known for your music. You're known for something you created for someone else, which is really not what you are. So it's that zone. So I think that's why for me,
I think a
work
lot
is
of creatives are going to enjoy this conversation because the idea of the vulnerable me is actually that, because the finished Mohan Kanan is known to everyone. He's an established music guy. He's got a name. He's got the fame, but they do not understand that it really is about that space of figuring out, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to approach it. One interesting question I have,
hmm,
when we were beginning our creative journeys, an option was considered a, a bad word. You
hmm,
had to crack it, and this is the one you have to do. And
hmm,
right now, very slowly and simply, you just pointed out, now we are open, we give three options, we do this, and we do it willingly. I find the
hmm,
same thing with me a couple of times. So when I have to rework, I don't have that angst anymore that as a
hmm,
youth you have, that I know how can you question my writing or whatever. So how does this come to be? How does one be willingly vulnerable? Vulnerable? Like you're giving three pieces, and I believe all three pieces are equally good most of the time. There might
sure.
be what we call it 19 bees, but
No,
otherwise,
but you
the,
might have one favorite that this is what I would prefer, but then because this guy's or someone else's
how
requirement
do
is
you make peace with that kind of vulnerability where you're presenting three things and unsure whether all three would go together or one of them would go? You're willing to revisit the drawing board. How does one make peace with something like that?
okay. There are two aspects to it. Again, first aspect is the marketing angle. Okay, being smart about it, at least I think it is, because what happens is if you're pitching for a film uh, and you don't know whether you're doing the film, okay, they're looking at 6 7 music directors at that point, and this is very rare for us because again, like I said, they come to us for a specific sound. It's not as if they're coming to us as one of many. So hum log ko वैसे but when there is a pitch involved, which is rare, but at that point it is always better to get them to choose between two of your own songs as opposed to between one of yours and one of the 6 other people.
Yeah,
So it's an easier situation, and you drive the conversation there. That
yeah,
this is according to your brief. This is a little different because I want to take it like this, but I'm not very sure whether this brief really works for you. But I wanted you to tell me which one of this is better. Now the question is, tell me which one of this is better. The question is not, do you like it? it is a better question for me to ask a client always. Then that person will say, of course, they like this one better, and they would have already gotten a certain strength of conviction behind it, whichever one that they like better. If they're confused between the two, even better. Because if they're confused, then they're only choosing between these two. Then they'll choose your better one, but they would have used that as conviction, and it drives them there. So that's the trying to, subliminally give them a push towards your song kind of zone. Works
Wonderful.
many times, sometimes also falls flat, but works many times.
Yeah.
The other side of it is also this, that at the, you know that you can do your music well. That's fine. You have to have that conviction that I can nibhao this. I can do whatever the situation demands. Um, but for a director to be able to move to your sonic representation of his visual or her visual will take some time. It is not going to happen like they hear a song. Rarely. It's going to happen sometimes. They hear a song, bloody hell, this is it. But at that point, if it doesn't happen, there are certain cases where people have come to us and said, यार इसमें क्या है ना, मुझे लग रहा है इसमें ये पियानो डाल दिया ना तो मुझे अलग फीलिंग हो रहा है, ये पियानो चेंज करके तुम एक फोक इंस्ट्रूमेंट डाल, ठीक है, like we'll do that. But first tell me, why is it bothering you? Don't tell me about instruments. Don't tell me in a musical language. Tell me, why is it bothering you? Think of it as a layperson. कि मुझे ये क्यों अजीब लगा? Then let me figure it out. Sometimes it turns out that the piano is actually not the thing. It is the overall feel of the song. The piano is taking it in that feel, but that's my, that's one of the instruments in the mix that is taking it there.
Yeah.
So I'll say, wait, we'll do that. We'll do something else, but let me compose something else, because I get a feeling that maybe there's some miscommunication in the first brief. And many times that happens, that after the first sonic representation, they realize that, shit, this is not what I am, because they get, a director is also trying their best to give you the best brief possible to make your work easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're trying to push you as much. इसीलिए reference भी दे देंगे, like यार ये ऐसा गाना हो जाएगा ना एकदम sorted है. And we then tell them don't. वैसा गाना बन चुका है. So then their poor fellows are in a soup है. कि मैंने एकदम perfect direction दे दिया, मुझे यही चाहिए था यार, गुस्तावो ही चाहिए था मुझे, लेकिन तुमने अब गुस्तावो की जगह तुम अभी एक बाउल म्यूजिक देखो तो मैं कैसे समझूं? But I've already told you. Now you're putting them in a soup thing, वो reference मत दे, मैं अपना करता हूँ. And at that point, you have to give them that leeway to be able to move to your thing. So give them 2-3 days. So you live with it. Then come back to me. Or you don't get it, let me be open to the situation and I'll give you one more. Let me see if I can rework from scratch. And I love that procedure because you also get to know what all you can do as a musician. Some cases you can't crack it. I've had a situation where I've cracked a song after 3 months. I've done an option. That person, I said, listen, at this point of time, ये सिचुएशन छोड़, बाकी 4 पे काम करते हैं, बिकॉज ये वाला सिचुएशन हमने 2 ऑप्शन कर लिया, neither are you happy nor am I happy, and luckily with the film we have that advantage, especially non lip sync songs की अभी 2 दिन में शूट है, वैसा वाला नहीं करना है, डांस सॉन्ग नहीं है, it's a montage song. Those times I've come back after 3 months saying suddenly एक वो नहाते वक्त तो हमेशा अच्छे आइडियाज होते हैं ना, so one of those times आया एक like यार this kind of thing. So that's happened in these cases, and that's where I genuinely love it. I genuinely love the idea that we have options to explore, and therefore it gives me the confidence in myself that I can do this. The same song I can look at in 3 different approaches or 2 different approaches. And वो कोई भी गाना waste नहीं होता. If you want to, you can release that other song later. That's as a separate thing. That's the advantage that we have. I'm not purely a film guy. Actually, the film part of me is 10%. 90% of me is Agni and my independent stuff. So, which is just purely who we are. It has no brief, nothing. ये गाना बना, that's it. So that also gives me a little bit of confidence that मुझे नहीं फर्क पड़ता. मुझे अगर ये गाना separately release करना पड़ता. So that's.
Sorry, you complete.
No, I was just finished. That's what I'm saying. So because I have an outlet to release my songs, I'm not slave to just that one format of film. I don't care that ये reject हो गया, दूसरा वाला हो गया, तो I'm very happy to release that song separately. If I do believe in it, I should be able to. Yeah. I don't want to trash it saying director didn't like to trash. I want to believe in that song, and if I do like that song a few months later, I hear it and I love it, I'm going to release it separately. क्या problem?
So, I think one of the things that is coming across to me is the the learning attitude that you're bringing to your profession. As you grow and you're supposedly becoming a master of your trade, whether it is in selling your wares or in the way you project yourself or use other means of convincing the director or the producer, options being one of them. But the way you are looking at the art itself, uh, uh, I've been quoting this, I think, poem, these two lines from Harendranath Chattopadhyay a couple of times in the last couple of episodes. But they've always had a huge impact on me as a kid. That when I was younger, I was proud of being the poet, and now I am older, I am content to be the poem. I think,
Oh wow.
and it is
Oh wow,
such
that's
a
beautiful.
it's
Mm.
such a beautiful thought because I'll send you the poem later, but it's like again and again you revisit it and you realize that something is being done through you.
Sure.
You are one of the first recipients of that beauty that is being created. Uh,
Sure.
some people call it co-creation. In fact, one of the things I was remembering a couple of days back was I read about I think Jaydev, Geet Govind, he had written in the 12th century or something.
Mm.
If I remember his name correctly, that saint
Geet
is
Govind is Jaydev.
and he
Huh.
is unwell and he has fever, so he cannot go to the Ganga to take his ritualistic bath that he takes every day before he sits down to write. Uh,
Mm.
so in that Doordarshan episode, Ganga actually comes to his home, and it
Wow.
made a huge impact to me because that means that is the amount of discipline that he must have put in. Where,
Mm.
or even when those gods appear in front of all these sadhus and whatever, I've always
Mm.
felt that more than God or the godliness of the situation, it is just the integrity with which they have approached their subjects. They've
Sure.
chosen meditation as a subject, or writing, or making
Whatever it is.
malhar by tansen. It's not really a, to me, it's a incidental thing that it's going to rain.
Sure.
That miracle is really unimportant. Just the fact that he feels that he has in himself and he wants to
Mm.
really worship that art so much
Mm.
that I think that is the beauty that is coming across to me from the way you're, not that any of us is reaching those levels because of the way our lifestyles are, but at least the approach and the intent is fairly genuine in trying to discover what can come out of us. So, do you want to comment something on that?
Upbringing, no. This is purely upbringing. This is a value system that's instilled in us from childhood, no. Like I said, when we started Agni, my first big thing was that my mom and my Guruji and my dad should approve. Had they not, would I have still continued to do Agni or not? I don't know. I honestly, it's a question mark. It's not clear to me that if they had not approved, I would have still continued to do it and fought that battle. But I never wanted to do something that uh, moved away from what I believe was good music. And what I believed was good music came from upbringing. So the at that point also, our era is slightly different because we were not in the social media zone. We didn't have access to become successful. I'm not even saying stars. I'm saying successful as musicians uh, through means that were available to us individually. It was to do music in such a way that someone who was a deciding authority at a label or at XYZ place gets convinced enough with that music and therefore releases it. Um, we didn't have that option of trying to figure out what stardom is. Our thing was, from the beginning, our thing was to become better musicians. That's what our parents taught us. Our parents didn't teach us how to be successful. They never, made us look in that direction. They made us look in a direction where your skill was better. So I remember that my only tests of music were when all the Vidwans used to come home. And for me, because of my parents, Vidwans used to be home all the time. Like the biggest Carnatic musicians, some of the, because Calcutta, then many big Hindustani musicians, I met Zakir Hussain Saab when I was, what, 7, because my mom and he were playing a concert. Uh, so at that, I remember he gave one Sandalwood Krishna to my mom because it was my birthday the next day. It's like, Mohan hai, chalo. So I remember all that. But your idols, the people you want to impress, that who you want to say shabash, they want, you want to play something or do something for them to say, are all people who are, I mean, like you said, they've done tapasya with their instrument. They've my grandmother told me this story that all waking hours she was with the violin, all waking hours. It is not possible for us to even imagine that that's possible. That हम
No,
लोग वो
I
practice कर
missed
सकते
this
हैं.
last point. What did your grandmother say?
about my mother that she apparently used to be with the violin all waking hours. उठती थी वो, नहा के ब्रेकफास्ट करके वायलिन, फुल डे फुल, मतलब जब तक सोती हैं तब वायलिन ही, because she was actually a vocalist. Then she saw Lalgudi Jaraman's concert when she won this All India Radio Award for best Carnatic vocalist in the country. That function had Lalgudi Jaraman, who's like a legend. We treat him like God, violin player from in the Carnatic field. She'd seen that concert. She got so inspired that she started learning the violin, self-taught. And when she started learning the violin, because by that time she had reached that level where her voice can do things that she is thinking. Fingers, you need more time because it's motor skill that you're. So for her, practicing the violin was that important. She used to spend all waking hours with it. हम लोग का तो 2 दिन प्रैक्टिस होता था, सॉरी 2 घंटा होता था दिन में, तो we used to feel excited कि यार today आज हमने खाना कमाया अपना kind of. So and that's so tiny compared to what I mean all our idols are. So our entire perspective is towards you know getting better at the music so that people we idolize come and tell us. Our thing is not about, oh my god, we'll get 50,000 likes on Instagram. This is never the perspective, and that is always an offshoot. Very happy if we get 50,000 likes. I'm not but for a minute trying to say that I don't like it when people like my stuff on Instagram. I love it. I'm very happy when people write good comments and press that like. I'm like, wow, say 10,000 views. I'm very happy with it. But I know that that is for the reason, for the right reason, you know, and that's why I'm proud of it. That मेरा गाना सुन के किसी को पसंद आया, and that's what I do. To do a better job, I want to get better at my music. To do a better job, I don't want to say, what do they like? Let me try and do that song. I'll never think like that. I don't think anyone in our generation, actually, most of us never thought like that because we weren't allowed to. Our parents made sure of it that यार कुछ करना है अच्छा तो उसके लिए क्या करना, वो सीखना पड़ेगा और ऑप्शन नहीं है, तुमको अच्छी नौकरी चाहिए, पढ़ाई ठीक से करो, ये सब तो ऑप्शन नहीं कि चलो यार कुछ और कर लेते हैं, you know. That's, I think that is the main reason why that integrity is instilled in us. We can't really take much credit for it. मार पड़ती है अगर नहीं होता. And that's a big advantage of the kind of upbringing that we've had. It's as much fear of disapproval which makes you do the good things, because tomorrow if I did something that in my mom's eyes or my guruji's eyes or my family's eyes felt like it was the kya kar diya, and that song becomes a super hit, I'll feel even more ashamed. So that's not giving me any happiness, so kya fayda ho?